Masturbation isn't just a habit. It's a war inside your soul that most believers are too ashamed to talk about. Yet it's silently sabotaging your spiritual authority, warping your identity, and keeping you chained in cycles of guilt and false comfort that the enemy exploits with terrifying precision. And if you're honest, you already know that feeling. The secret wrestling behind closed doors, the numbness afterward, and the haunting thought that maybe God is disappointed in you for the 1,000th time. But here's the shocking truth. What you're battling isn't just physical. It's a spiritual stronghold cloaked in the lie of harmless pleasure. Because the enemy knows if he can keep your desire trapped in fantasy, you'll never have the energy or purity to fulfill your real calling. You start to notice how your prayers feel weaker, how worship doesn't hit the same, how you avoid intimacy with God because your shame convinces you He's distant, even though Hebrews 4:15 says Jesus sympathizes with our weaknesses. This isn't about condemnation, it's about confrontation. While the world calls it self-love, the Spirit calls it self-deception when it becomes a substitute for trust, covenant, and holiness. And deep down, you feel it. Something is off. You're tired of the secret cycle that never satisfies, the pattern of craving, release, and regret. You ask yourself, is this sin or struggle? But the truth is, sin and struggle often look identical on the surface. The only difference is whether you're fighting it or feeding it. Some of you aren't trapped because you're weak, but because you've stopped calling it a battle. You've started calling it normal. And the most dangerous sins are the ones you've domesticated, justified, and baptized in silence. But Ephesians 5:11 warns us to have nothing to do with the fruitless deeds of darkness, but rather expose them. Keeping this hidden is exactly what gives it power. Here's the terrifying part. Every time you bow to it, something in you forgets how to say no. And the more you normalize it, the more your spirit gets dulled, your discernment dimmed, your hunger for God traded for 30 seconds of false intimacy that leaves you emptier than before. And if that sounds extreme, it's because we're dealing with something hell uses to delay destinies, to twist identity, to whisper the lie that you can't stop, that it's just part of being human. But Romans 6:14 says sin shall no longer be your master, which means even if it feels impossible, it's not. The power of the cross didn't come to make you feel better about your sin. It came to kill it, to break it, to tear down every altar you've secretly built to lust while lifting your hands in worship on Sunday. Maybe no one told you this, but part of the reason you're under heavy spiritual fatigue, constant confusion, and emotional numbness is because every release is costing you clarity, peace, and power. You've unknowingly made a covenant with pleasure that's keeping you from covenant with purpose. You can't be fully surrendered to God while still giving the enemy keys to your most intimate places. And this isn't about shame, it's about awakening. 1 Corinthians 6:19 reminds you, your body is the temple of the Holy Spirit, and temples aren't built to be playgrounds for private escape. They're sacred spaces for holy fire. And that fire dies when you keep feeding it counterfeit comfort. Some of you think you can outgrow this without exposing it, without fasting, without accountability, without crucifying your flesh daily, like Galatians 5:24 commands. What you tolerate in secret becomes the idol you end up worshiping in your heart. And God is not mocked. What you sow, you will reap. Sowing to the flesh reaps corruption, no matter how saved you are. The shame doesn't leave just because you had a moment of prayer. It leaves when you start waging war. When you break the pattern, when you fast, when you confess, when you stop calling this just a struggle and start calling it what it is: a trap, a chain, a lie dressed as relief. Some of you are one confession away from breakthrough, one fast away from clarity, one act of obedience away from deliverance. But you've been stuck so long, you don't even believe freedom is possible anymore. And that's exactly what the devil wants: to wear down the saints slowly, quietly, deceptively. So you stay gifted but bound, anointed but ashamed, visible but tormented. You wonder why you don't hear God like before, why your purpose feels delayed, why your joy is flickering. It's because you've made peace with a war zone, and as long as you do, you'll never walk in full authority. But if you're reading this and something in your spirit is screaming, "Enough," then now is your moment. Not tomorrow, not next week. Now draw a line. Shut the door. Stop negotiating with temptation. Cry out like David in Psalm 51, verse 10. "Create in me a clean heart, O God." Because purity isn't about perfection, it's about pursuit. And if you're still pursuing, still fighting, still getting back up, even when you fall, then grace is still at work. God hasn't left you. He's waiting for you to stop hiding. Stop justifying. Start surrendering fully. And if you dare to do that, you'll realize this wasn't just about lust. It was about your destiny, your clarity, your legacy, your fire. And when you break this, chains fall off more than just your body. They fall off your future.